Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby Pod. I'm Ross Karl. We've got lots for you today. We have an inaugural Super Rugby Aupiki champion. We've had a bit of Super Rugby from the weekend, some incredible Six Nations. Of course, we'll talk about France and how they're stacking up before the next Rugby World Cup, and a few other things to get through as well this week, including a very special guest to kick us off at the start of the show. It's not James Parsons and it's not Bryn Hall. It is 2022 Super Rugby Aupiki champion with the Chiefs Manawa, Chelsea Semple. Welcome on board.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now, in COVID times, what does the celebration look like 24 hours in?
Oh, still pretty good, to be honest. Sunday night we just stayed with our team in our team room here in Hamilton, and had a real good celebration as we deserve to, I think. So. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit dusty today, but I didn't. I called it early. So
now, obviously, the story of the tournament, well, for me anyway, and I'm sure a lot of other people, was having your husband James coach the Blues and yourself in the Manawa. Talk us through that experience, I suppose, when you're in that competitive mindset, but also now post it and the results there. No doubt he's supporting you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting experience. Obviously, we've had the experience of him coaching me. We did that for 2 years in the Waikato women's team, but this is the first time we've obviously been rivals with each other. So, the banter's been really good. He's really enjoyed his time up with the Blues, and it's really weird though because we talk about code so much at home. And with him coaching the Blues and me being in the Manawa, both pretty professional and protective of our information and stuff, it's been hard to kind of steer away from the rugby chat and try get little bits and pieces of information off each other. We did promise that no matter who took the trophy home, we wouldn't brag about it today. But I didn't promise that I wouldn't wear Chiefs kit around the house all day. So
that's outstanding. I can hear
he's walking around the house now, not feeling too happy.
Oh, Chelsea, surely he doesn't have a job moving forward for next year. No points as a coach, surely.
Oh,
that'd be your bragging rights for the day.
Shush. I was pretty stoked to keep them scoreless, to be honest. I'm hearing a lot of chat about the ref and all these other things, but at the end of the day, I think it was pretty convincing. So,
just going back to obviously the start of the tournament, and obviously your delayed arrival into Taupō. Just seeing that little flick pass, try assist, humble flick pass for the try assist last night. Although it was challenging that period, you still were really focused on your day-to-day skill work you could do?
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty unfortunate for me joining the party late because of COVID. Kind of put me on the back foot, but although I wasn't able to do kind of my usual conditioning sessions and fitness trainings and real physical stuff, I was still able to do lots of skill work in the backyard, and my plan worked. As soon as I got COVID, I made sure my husband got it too, so he was home with me. And although he was coach of the Blues, I said, I'm your wife before you're a coach, so get out in the backyard and practice some skills with me and give me some coaching. So it worked. I was pretty lucky.
Chelsea, just had a question, just more so around the competition structure in that. No doubt, obviously, it's a little bit frustrating around the condensed competition and obviously with the COVID protocols and that, but obviously getting it started and having the competition, what did you feel that were the positives around the competition, something that you might want to see moving forward for the girls in the competition, moving forward for Aupiki to 2023?
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging with COVID and everything, and it was changing an environment all the time for us, and we had to just be able to adapt, which is really tough, I think, for the women, because we need to get time off work, and we got mums in the team who have to find caregivers for babies and all these sorts of things. So having the condensed bubble, it was tough for some people, but for me personally, I saw it as really the only option to get this competition off the ground and up and running. And the only thing that a lot of us knew for sure was that we had to play this Aupiki tournament, not just for the growth of women's rugby, but for the growth of the current Black Ferns and top women's rugby players in the country to get that top level competition as we head into a home World Cup year. And I think the benefit of what we've all got from this tournament has been massive, huge amounts of benefits. So I'm happy it went ahead, but I can see that, I can feel and I can see that the public want more, we want more. I think there's room for more. So the stakes in the ground now, and I think next year it's going to have to be bigger and better, and it's going to be a massive beast moving forward, and something for the girls to aspire to like bridge that gap between FPC and Black Ferns as well. So a success, but still plenty of room for growth, I believe.
In a perfect world for you, what is bigger and better, Chelsea? Like, what do you see as the way that it should look next year?
If I'm being 100% honest, I'd love to see contracts and franchises for women. So women, the Chiefs, Manawa and all these other franchises are able to have full-time women. We're able to play a proper competition like the men's, and the Super Rugby and women's competition in Australia is really strong at the moment too. So it would be awesome to have some Trans-Tasman competition get underway as well. If we get there next year or in another few years, I'm not sure, but that would be my ideal world, to be a fully contracted, not only just Black Fern, but part of the Chiefs whānau.
That would be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? And it would give you more time in camp together. I suppose a couple of weeks is one thing, isn't it? But if you want to catch up to where the English and the French have got to in the last little while, it's about repetition, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And we learnt that last year, 2 years without games and coming up against those ladies who have been full-time professional and have been playing a lot of games. It was just, we couldn't match them. So, with us for the Aupiki as well, I mean, we only had a couple of weekend camps leading into it, and one of our camps fully got cancelled, as did the other franchises, and one camp got cut in half. So I honestly think we had 2 or 3 days on the grass maximum together, and we were still able to put out some exciting rugby and some rugby that the spectators really enjoyed watching. So just imagine what we could do and what we could show the country with a bit more time together, a bit more time to prepare in more ideal conditions.
Just one thing, Chelsea, moving on from that, obviously was a really tough campaign for you girls in that Northern Hemisphere tour. Just been really interested to see what you thought around the improvements that you guys needed to make for this World Cup coming up. Like, just seen from through Aupiki, it was a great spectacle and there's a lot of great brand of rugby, but I just found, I don't know if you felt you were out there playing it, but the breakdown area, especially on attack, there were a lot of turnovers and conceded from defensive sides being able to jackal and get on the ball. And I just think maybe moving forward, did you guys talk around that defensive breakdown and more so the physicality on attack to be able to build high phases and then put these teams like England and France under pressure?
Yeah, 100%. That's a massive work on for us at the moment in this country, and it's nationwide, is being able to hold on to the ball for more than 3 phases. Our breakdown work definitely needs a lot of work. Overseas, we got pretty dominated in that area, but we improved drastically from the first game to the last game, and that just came from game time. We went on the end of year tour. Myself, I'd played 5 FPC games for the whole year and 1 Super Rugby game in February. So for me, running out on the field personally, like, if I'm really honest, the contact area, the collision area, just the little unseen things here and there, I just was not internationally match fit prepared for. So yeah, you're right, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and I think that'll come with game time as well. And the other area that we were just not up to scratch in was just our fitness, and which leads into physicality and aggression, because we're not able to keep putting out repeat efforts for a long time. And again, that comes back to lack of games and stuff as well. So, I mean, we've already got the upper hand this year, and we know we've got to keep playing games. So there's tours lined up. And yeah, we learned a lesson last year, so you're going to see a different side come out this year, that's for sure.
Chelsea, on that as well, the contract structures have changed for the Black Ferns squad, so I'm thinking that will play a big part, especially in that fitness side of things and being prepared for more fixtures. Yeah,
definitely. I've been in the game a long time, and I've been part of the Black Ferns for a long time, and this is the first time I've ever had it as my full-time job where I get to go to work at a normal time in the morning, train all day, recover properly, do all the little things properly. In the last 10 years, it's been, you go training in the morning, you go to work and you train at night. You don't have the time to recover well, to sort out your nutrition properly. So for us, having a full, 30-odd girls with full contracts, able to live and breathe it, to put all of their time and energy into rugby and also have the balance outside of rugby is going to make a huge difference. I wish there were more contracts because I believe we need a bigger depth of players doing this. Otherwise, it's going to go like this, where you've got kind of the top ones getting all of this resource and the ones underneath are going to fall behind a little bit. So, yeah, I just hope that the next pool of players is going to be well looked after as well.
Speaking of the next pool, were there any of the, I suppose, the unknown names stand out to you? I mean, I saw a couple. I thought Olsen Baker yesterday for the Hurricanes poll was just amazing. Like you talk about winning collisions and providing the opportunity to get quick attacking ruck ball. She certainly put herself on the map.
Yeah, 100%. Kaipo is just an amazing talent, and she's actually been out of the game for over a year with the ACL reconstruction, and that game with the Hurricanes Poa was her first game back. And she's just a young kid, and I mean, I had to tackle her and I felt it the next day. So more of those young girls like that. There's Liana Mikaeli-Tu'u from the Blues as well. Her and young Maya Roos, they're two dominant ball carriers, and these are just young, enthusiastic, strong girls that are coming through. So I definitely think, I saw Glenn Moore sitting up in the stands, and he'll be adding a few names to the list of people to talk to, I'm sure. And we've got camp coming up in a couple of weeks, so I'll be seeing some of those girls there for sure.
So you've got quite a few camps coming up, Chelsea. There's a fair bit of time together.
Yeah, we got a couple, 2 camps in April and 1 in May, and then a team will get selected to play. I think it's into June, July series. I'm not quite 100% sure what that looks like at the moment. Like I said, ever-changing environment with COVID, but we will have tests against some other international teams, so that'll be good.
Sorry, Chelsea, just going back to the Chiefs as well. Obviously, you girls seem to hit your stride right at the back end of the competition, and your coach obviously talked about it as well, the fact that it felt like if you guys were to play more games, you guys were going to play, you were going to see a much better product. Just talk to us behind the scenes around what made that Chiefs Manawa group so good, because on TV you could see how tight you guys were, your haka, the intensity that you girls showed with that, but then your ability at the back end of the competition, you guys were just leaps and bounds above the competition. So just give us a little insight to how it was in that camp.
Yeah, we had an unreal management group. We had Alan Bunting as head coach, and I think it's pretty well known what an amazing job he done with the Sevens girls and their success over in Tokyo at the Olympics. And that was my first time being coached by him, and he is just a man that just oozes mana, and he creates such a cool environment, and it's more than just being about rugby for him. And he had an awesome management group that backed him up as well. And also our captain, Les Elder, was a massive part of creating that culture as well. So, yeah, we always link everything back to our roots, where we come from. And I think it just helped everyone buy into the team. And we took the time to get to know each other probably more than I've done in any other team. And I think that just creates trust on the field as well. Being in the bubble environment, obviously, you got a lot more time to spend together. So we were able to really build on that culture and build on our connection. And like I said, our management gave us all the time we needed to make sure that was really strong. And I think, like you said, you could see it in the last game when it all came together. We had a few games there where we knew what we wanted to do, we just weren't quite executing. And in that last game, our phrase was just to unleash our taniwha, which is unleash what's inside us and play with freedom and play with fun. And I think that's what we achieved. So, yeah.
We definitely saw that with the Portia Woodman try. You unleashed everything in that try. That was an incredible try.
Yeah. How do you think I feel
trying
trying to keep up with her when she gets a runaway?
You showed a pretty clean set of heels to get around the outside. I don't think we can forget about that.
Oh, no. When she goes, I just pretend I haven't seen him.
You mentioned getting to know each other better. What does that entail? Is that just sitting down with someone and asking them about themselves, or is that a team building session, or what does that look like to really get to know your teammates?
Yeah, there's a few different things. So we had a culture group in our team that run little fun nights for us. Like we had a casino night and we had a bingo night, and you're in mini teams, and then you got to go and break off into other little groups that you wouldn't probably usually find yourself going to hang out with. So with Chiefs, we had girls come from different regions. We had Maya from down in Otago and Georgia Dales from Wellington, girls that I'd never talked to in my life. And by the end of it, I felt like I knew them so well, just because, having those moments to be able to sit and chat with people. Another cool thing we did was in our jersey presentations, because of the COVID situation, again, we couldn't get anyone in to present our jerseys as we usually would. So girls would actually stand up and talk about what the jersey means to them and what kind of journey they've been on. And our girls are pretty awesome at being really vulnerable and opening themselves up and sharing their journey and sharing their emotion. And I think there's no more powerful way to connect a team than hearing someone's struggles and seeing them kind of have the trust in their team to open up and share that with each other. So that was a really awesome thing that I experienced in the team, was just girls even that you think you've known for a long time, and seeing them open up and learn stuff about them that you would never have known was pretty powerful. So yeah, just lots of little things like that.
You were an open book at the end of last year's inaugural game. You came off the back and you talked about your emotions coming off such a huge moment to being kind of a little flat in the days afterwards. Has it changed this year, knowing all the things that are in play? Does it feel better this time around?
Yeah, for sure it does. I mean, after the game last year, I went back to teaching at Hamilton Boys High the following day, and back to early morning starts, and it was just a grind for me. And yeah, I opened up and I was vulnerable, and I hope that helped a few other girls that might have been struggling with the same thing. But this year it does feel different, because I'm back straight into a rugby environment where my employers know what I've been through in the last few weeks, and I'm much better looked after. It's not such a grind and trying to hold down all these different jobs and positions to make ends meet in that. So yeah, it definitely feels different. I mean, the World Cup's going ahead this year. There's tests in place, and there's an end goal. So yeah, there won't be any vulnerable posts for me. Just emotion about winning the first Super Rugby Aupiki, which still feels pretty surreal.
Yeah, come on.
And in a cheap shirt, no less.
I don't know why Bryn's saying come on. I'm pretty sure he was right behind the Matatu, and I actually said I think the Chiefs are the favourite.
So I was just meaning more so that it's good to have another panelist as a champion. It's good, man.
Hey, Trans-Tasman, mate, it's a beautiful trophy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's three of us now. There's three of us.
He nearly got caught short.
I was backing my Matatu girls, but no,
mate,
Chiefs Mana were too good. Way too good.
Mate, you're already on the Rebels dartboard. Don't make Bryn. You come to my one, mate. Chelsea, obviously we won't keep you for much longer, but is there, I know you're a big golfer now, you're on your golfing journey. Is there a person in your household that has the superior handicap?
Oh, honestly, if you came out to golf with me and James, you'd be in fits of laughter. I can play one really good hole and I'm like, I've nailed this golf thing. And then the next hole, I'm just topping the ball the whole way up to the hole. And I get frustrated because I hate not being good at stuff. But man, yeah, discovering golf in the last few months has definitely been a journey.
It certainly is.
James would need
Me and James are pretty even. We're pretty even, I'd say. Yeah.
James would need a mental skills coach. Absolutely.
I say to him on the golf course, I don't know how you played first five and control teams. You can't even control your temper if you don't drive it.
He didn't. He couldn't. Nah, he was good, man.
Is that why he finished up early?
He ran a good cutter at Harbour. He ran a good cutter.
Hey, Bryn, have you been put on the bench this week or something, mate? You're coming in hot.
Nah, sorry, mate. Nah, I just got a lot of energy.
Well, thank you very much, Chelsea, for joining us once again. Chelsea Semple, Chiefs champion of Super Rugby Aupiki. Thanks for joining us on the show. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, team. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Chelsea.
Sweet. See ya.
Now, there's another Chiefs team which we've got to take a look at. Super Rugby Pacific has just got going again for one game of the weekend because of COVID, but the Chiefs showed they're pretty damn hot, the men.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the biggest reasons that I tipped them as contenders at the start of the year, is their depth. And I think to lose 19 players, have a disrupted week and put a performance like that together was pretty impressive. And I think Burr at 7 is probably the best example of that. He's probably never played 7 before, normally like a lock 6 in the NPC. And man, he was just a terrier at those breakdowns. He was into everything. So I always think when there's changes like that and they perform, it shows something special's happening in that environment.
With the depth they've got too, the number of injuries that are within that squad. In fact, that's the Chiefs every year, isn't it? It feels like the Chiefs go through at least 30 players a year. But again, Bryn, they've got that depth and yet somehow they put teams on and the next player steps up and it's Crusader-like.
Well, I think Brad Webber actually brought up a really good point in his post-match. They talked around what made these guys come in and make it seem seamless and like, it was just another day in the office. It was based around, they had injuries a couple of years ago when they had to bleed in a lot of young players in that kind of 2-year period. And now you've seen the fruition of those players and that experience that they had in that time where they get the opportunity now to be able to, doesn't matter who plays, they've got enough experience in those, especially in the Super Rugby Aotearoa games. There's a lot of learnings for that group. And then, he looks at the likes of Bryn Gatlin again, who I thought, he stays in my form 15 again, who's playing some tremendous footy. But I think it's around him and the shape that they're playing at. Traditionally last year, the shape that they had, they'd drop off that dummy cut and have the 2 runners outside the 10. But at the moment, it seems like they've got the 3 runners outside and they can hit any options moving forward. So I think the variety of their play around their face play shape off that is the example that I use. But then once they hit that ruck and then they're playing face play shape off that, everybody seems to be aligned and it's really, really good. And like you said, they scored 6 tries on the weekend in that second half and it just didn't give Moana Pasifika a chance to breathe. The lightning tempo that Brad Webber was there, the efficiency of the breakdown was clean. And, to be honest, we would have thought this would have been a scoreline considering where the Chiefs have been. But it's another thing to do it, especially with a lot of change that they did on the weekend.
I think, Brynner, as well, you speak about that phase play shape. For me, when I was watching it, it's the consistency. They run the same lines and they just wait for the ball to be hit to them. And then to back you up on Gats, his decision-making of who to hit. Because it's actually, one thing for them to all run the same lines but then pick the right bloke. So if you look at Slater going through, that's a great decision there. Nankivell's try, he just goes straight through a gaping hole, but it's the people that are running out the back, the other lines, that sucks in defenders and it forces a defender to make a decision. But then it also forces the guy with the ball in his hand to make a decision. And if you pick the wrong one, that's where hospital pass comes from, doesn't it? And time again, we're seeing the consistency in their shape of phase play, but consistently the right decision made by their playmakers to give the ball to the person in space.
Yeah, we've been giving Bryn Gatlin some big ups for a couple of years.
Oh, you don't need too much for us to start crying about him.
That's right. He's the favourite of the show, but you touched on him before. What is different about Bryn this year? Or is anything different? Is it just that he's doing what we've always known that he could do?
Oh, I think it's also the pack he's playing behind. We're talking about Peter Gus and All Black selection now, and you're trying to find space for other All Blacks, and are they, where are they going to be? And then, having someone like Brad Webber playing more consistently as well, and having that time in the saddle. But then I also think, he is a confidence player and he's confident. When he's taking that ball to the line and he has the ability to run, pass or kick, that's when he's at his best. But also he's got his balance right of when to play down the other end. So I just think he's finding the feet that Bryn and I know so well at NPC level, at Super Rugby level now. And I think last year's experience in the final, other big games in Super Rugby Aotearoa, were crucial to him coming into this year and being able to pull it off. Competition helps as well. I think Josh Ioane going there, competition helps, brings the best out of him.
Yeah, Bryn, what do you see? I mean, you played a lot inside him. What does he bring when he's played outside you that made him special to play with?
I think when he's had success especially with North Harbour at Mitre 10 Cup or Bunnings NPC, it's when he's actually been attacking the line. And so for the fact that he's been able now to do it at Super Rugby, that's probably been the biggest improvement that I've seen him. Like we've always talked about his distribution and his kicking game as a massive strength of his, but it's the ability now that when you don't know with Bryn if he's either going to pass, if he's going to run, or he's going to kick. And so as a defender, it's so much harder to be able to defend that. And so, like I said, the amount of line breaks that he's making, because he's making the right decision, like Jip said, because it's the right option to do. Whereas I probably see at times in North Harbour when he does play well, but he might do a bad pass where doesn't go to the right player, or it's a kick out on the full. But at the moment with Bryn, his consistency and his decision-making skills under pressure and on going on front foot ball, it's just at a place where it hasn't been. It's at a high level from where it was at NPC. Yes, we've talked about his NPC and how he's played there, but I think he's even taken it to another level because he's playing consistently and there's no mistakes that are happening. It's all good decision and really good decision making that he's doing as well.
And part of that is the breakdowns, and the boys up front are providing that ball, but they're creating deep rucks, which doesn't allow line speed pressure, which gives you time on the ball to make the right decisions. So there's so many moving parts. They're allowing him to bring the best out of himself, and I do think that's a big factor. Is the Chiefs' breakdown, their brutality around that is always there, but I think they're starting to be real accurate and using only one or two bullets to clean it, which means there's more guys on their feet, more threats for defenders to read, and then time on the ball for their game drivers.
Bullet's a new one. I haven't heard the bullet.
Sorry,
before.
Ross.
That's
Sorry,
just
Ross.
Going in and getting it.
Yeah, so I'm a bullet and I have to move you.
Yeah.
We only need to use one. We don't want to use two.
Right, nice. Luckily you're tied to the chair there. We don't have to worry about that. What were you going to say?
Sorry, Ross. Yeah, sorry, just on that as well. And I think it's more so, it's the flow when you talk around the phase play shape and Bryn making good decisions. It's because like what the point that Jip brought up around everybody's in the right spot. So it's really easy as a playmaker if you know exactly where your person's supposed to be, whether if it's a skip pass or if it's out the back or if it's a kick, and everything's consistent and really good communications coming into you. Whereas, you got Bunnings NPC, there might be a few guys that aren't in position or aren't running the right lines. But coming back to Jip's point, with them all being on the same page as an inside back, it's just so much more easy to be able to execute under pressure when you've got people in the right place to make it easy for you.
Before we move on to talking about Moana Pasifika, let's touch on the Chiefs. We talked about their depth, but when you look at Tupou Vaa'i playing well at blindside flanker, Peter Gus, as you mentioned, going great at number 8. Then you've got Brodie, Josh Lord, Luke Jacobson, my boy, to come back. How do you fit all of these guys into a starting lineup? Is it possible? Do you want to?
I hate to crow about the Crusaders once again, but I'm going to have to. How many times have we seen All Blacks sit on the bench for the Crusaders? And that's just going to be a reality here. It just doesn't fit. So one person is probably going to have to sit on the bench each week. I don't know how you see it, Bryn, but you can't manufacture them any other way. There's not enough spots. So, I mean, the key is probably around that locking spot. I think Jacobson, Pitagus and Sam Cane sort of go straight in there. And then it's probably Brodie and Tupou Vaa'i. And then them being managed with a young fellow like Josh Lord. And I think the role Josh played off the bench on the weekend shows how eager he is to be out on the grass, and that energy, enthusiasm and excitement when there's tired bodies late in the game can be really beneficial.
You go the same way, maybe Josh Lord off the bench?
Yeah, that's the exact setup that I would go. And what it does do, I talk around through our experiences of having locks, or doesn't matter what position it is, whether it's depth, it just adds to your training as well. It adds to the depth and the intensity that you bring at training, because you've got guys that want to be in that starting lineup, so you should be, you're a competitor. But what it does do, it brings up the intensity at training, because you want to, going into training, you've got to prove yourself and be at a high consistency to try and beat them out for it when you get out on the field as well. So I think from experience around having a really good depth in our squad, it's just going to bring the level of training up, better expectation at training, and then it's going to be able to flow on. And when you have the opportunity, when you do play, you just take it consistent, you keep having to go.
Bryn, what about Moana Pasifika? It was a step backwards, I suppose, against a very, very strong Chiefs team. What went wrong for them from what you saw?
I think it was in that first half, they gave away a lot of penalties in that first half. They gave away, I think it was 9 or 10 penalties in that first half. So look, we've talked about it a lot before around especially a hot Chiefs team like that, you can't afford to give them opportunities inside the goal line or relieve pressure. And probably that first half, they did that a lot. They only gave away 5 penalties in the second half, but the fact that the Chiefs had so much ball in that second half, and they were just, to be honest, it didn't matter what Moana Pasifika did in that second half, just with how of a high motor the Chiefs were rolling at. But I think as well, set piece, there were a couple of times in that first half, they had a couple of line-out opportunities, really got themselves in a position to be able to try and score points, and they didn't execute their line-out throw. So, and then, so we've talked about it a lot. The discipline is going to be a big factor, and set piece at crucial times in games. And those are probably 2 areas that I thought they got wrong on the weekend. Jip, I don't know if you saw the same, but those are the two things that I saw.
Like honestly, discipline was huge. I think it was 14-4, the penalty count. And yeah, the Chiefs were in high mode, but they were given opportunity to be in high mode time and time again in that second 40. And I think they have to find a way, rather than trying to play themselves out of situation. They had 27% territory in the second half, but they had 49% of the ball, so it's nearly 50-50 with ball, but you're trying to play out of your half rather than, you look at Willie Havili's 50-22, he's got a cannon, just use it. If we even look at the Italian game, like they didn't play any stuff in their half, and it gives you an opportunity to stay in games and win. And then thirdly, I think, speaking of Slater going through and Nankivell going through, you've always got to mark that front body. I think you can't have defensive misreads that big because it's just too damaging when teams get in beside you. So you sometimes you're better off to tighten up and show no hole and use the sideline as your friend rather than going for the guy out the back. And that's a straight 50-50 play if Bryn makes the right call to hit Slater or the guy at the back, or same thing with Nankivell and whoever ran out the back of him. So those big defensive misreads, I think, need to be shored up, but can be quickly. And then there's their balance of attack when they're stuck in their half is huge.
So 59-12 against the Chiefs, not a great read. Against the Hurricanes, how do you see that playing out?
I don't think, they didn't give themselves a chance in that second half, but they were right in it. At 12-7, Bryn, I don't know how you saw it. They were right in the fight. They were winning some physical collisions. Yeah, they had a couple of lineouts that didn't go astray, but their lineout was pretty clinical in the second half. They're winning a lot of it off the back. So I don't think it's panic stations. They just need to believe in their systems and shore up discipline. It's no different for any team that reviews themselves. Anytime you've got over 10 penalties, you're just giving the opposition a piggyback into you. And then those defensive reads. Defence wins championships. Time and time again, defence will win championships. And we've seen this, even this year, if you look at the Six Nations or other games that have been tight, it's been on the back of tight defence.
Yeah. Well, should we have a quick look over the Tasman? You mentioned the Drua, who fell just short of the Force 2018. Did you see that one playing out like that?
Look, I picked the Force 1-12, but I knew it would be tight. The Drua tackled at 94%. They made more tackles. Like, that's a hell of an effort. And kept themselves right in the game. And unfortunately, as we sort of just spoke about, discipline again gave the Force the opportunity to get to where they got to and win. But what I'm liking is, the Drua, we're talking about that balance of attack with MP. In that first 40, they played a lot and gave the Force opportunities in their half, and they didn't play that well, but they came out in the second half and they played all their rugby down that end. And if they can just put that together for 80, they will really challenge sides, because there's one area they are dominating, and that is breakdown physically on defence and attack. They are being brutal in that area, and a lot of our game is played off the back of a good breakdown. So they've got the opportunity, and they're starting to put their players in form, which is exciting for when both Tasmans come together.
Absolutely. The Brumbies was the other big win over the weekend. The Brumbies 16, the Reds 12, Bryn. They are now the only undefeated team in Super Rugby Pacific. Is it shaping as a team that you think is going to take down a couple of Kiwi sides?
Well, look, they're the only undefeated team, and it doesn't matter if you win ugly or well. They're getting the job done. Any time they have that kind of derby against the Reds, 16-12, tight finish, and they probably could have possibly even got a penalty at the end against them with that big scrum from the Reds, but did enough to get the job done. So, but I think you are right, Ross. I think expectation for probably them is to be able to dominate, and they're doing that with winning the games against the Australian teams. But I think the big one's going to be for when those New Zealand teams come over. But what they are doing is they are accumulating points. The fact that New Zealand teams are playing against each other and getting wins here and there, and it's not an out-and-out winner in our conference at the moment. I know we're not playing in conferences, but just for the fact we're in Aotearoa at the moment, they're accumulating points, so they're putting themselves in a really good position for the back end when us Kiwi teams, we do go over there.
Yeah, hey, why don't we move on to the Super Rugby Pacific Dream Team selections? So make sure you go to rugbypass.com, go check out the Super Rugby Pacific Dream Team each week. Go in, choose your favourite players in the weekend who you thought make that weekend's Dream Team. As the competition goes on, we'll be giving away subscriptions to rugbypass.com, and if you chose the closest team to the team that was selected by everyone all over the place, you'll get yourself a subscription. This week's winner is Kevin Purston. Of course, if you're the most consistent person over the length of the season, unfortunately for you, you'll be coming in here with us, and you'll get a crack here on Aotearoa Rugby Pod to say exactly what you think's going on. So boys, let's have a look. This week, what are the big changes for you in your dream team, Jipper?
There's quite a lot because obviously a lot of games weren't played, so it's probably easier for me to just go 1 to 15 if I'm honest, because they're pretty much all changed. I went for Slipper, Slater and Aotearoa in the front row, Retallick, and I've put Tupo Vai in at lock because I had to find space for Uru, the 6 for the Reds. Man, he's in some red hot form over there, and I'm looking forward to seeing him go against our sides, but he's a line-out option. He's good in the collision and he's great in the carry. So he was outstanding. Burr, who was my player of the round, I thought for him to slip in Sam Cane's jersey, or that 7 jersey, he held his own and then some. Gus at 8, Weber at 9, Gats at 10, Ravovo from the Drua at 12, Paisami at 13, 11 I went Tom Wright. I thought he had another solid game. Probably his consistency of form got him over Fumai. Habosi from the Drua as well on the right wing. And then I've put O'Connor at 15 because I didn't think he played better than Gats, but he played well enough to get in to my form 15.
I actually went pretty similar in the forwards, but for number 1, I went Ollie Norris from the Chiefs. I thought his turnover breakdowns were unreal on the weekend. I think he had 3 big turnovers, and his ability to be able to get over the ball. We talk about it with the Northern Hemisphere and the ability to get over the ball. I think he's a guy to watch. I've gone Slater, Alalatoa, got Tupo Vai, Brody Retallick. I've gone Lee Warner from the Force. Top the tackle count and was a bit of a workhorse in that game with 20 tackles. I've also gone Burr at 7, Gus at 8. Same Weber and Bryn at 9 and 10. I've actually gone Manasa Mataili from the Force on the weekend. He was really electric on the weekend. Had 153 metres and had 14 carries as well, and was back to his elusive self coming back from a long injury when he was with us. I've gone for the pairing of Pyre and Nankivell. I've gone for those two. I wanted to go for Kitty and Parisi, who I thought were good for the Waratahs, but I thought the way that Bryn played well was set up due to the fact of Tupai and Nankivell. I've actually gone Formai on the 14, who I thought was good on the wing on the weekend, and I've actually gone Banks, Tom Banks. I had to put him in the 15, so I put him at fullback, who obviously isn't playing fullback, but I thought he was good on the weekend, so I had to put him in there somehow, and he's done that at 15.
You like that as a call?
Yeah, he can definitely play there.
Yeah.
He's no problems with that. I've moved 10 to 15, so I'm not really going to have a crack at someone that moved a winger to fullback.
Yeah, fair enough too. Well, while we're talking about Tom Banks, we've seen Dave Rennie name a 40-man squad for a camp early next season. This is the time where you start another campaign to become one of Dave Rennie's assistant coaches. But look, he's named a 40-man squad. There's an interesting mission for me. Matt Tulmua, obviously one of the elder statesmen of the Aussie game now. Would that surprise you that he's not there?
Not necessarily, because I don't know, the way it was is he said these players are all going to leave the camp knowing what they need to show in the coming weeks. I think they know what Matt's about and they know what he can deliver, so there's probably a space taken up which they don't need. I'm not saying that that's the case, that's just the way I read it, and I don't think it would be surprising if he did make the initial squad, even though missing this training squad. And it gives guys like Donaldson and those uncapped players the opportunity, one, for the coaches to learn a little bit more about them, but also for them to probably go into another pressure cooker, because they're all quite new in their Super Rugby career, so it would have been a pressure cooker coming into those environments. This is only going to step it up even more, and Dave Rennie always works in mysterious ways that normally come off for him, so I don't think it's the end of Matt's career, no.
Were you surprised by any inclusions or omissions, Bryn?
I was just stoked to see Neville. It's Caden Neville?
Yeah.
Caden?
Yeah.
Yeah, Caden, like 33 years of age, and has the possibility of debuting, so it's great to see him obviously in the environment. He's done a bit of time in Japan and then come back to Australia, and is a bit of an athlete, man, considering his age. He's quite mobile and quite big, and we talk around the collision area, especially with the Northern Hemisphere teams at the moment. He's one guy that I've enjoyed watching due to the fact of his physicality, and also Nick Frost as well, another guy that's a big beast and a big man, 206 centimetres, and it seems that Dave Rennie's looking to be able to bulk up his pack with having the likes of Neville and Frost in that loose forward trio, the locking department.
I think Jed Holloway comes into that as well. Like, he's been tradesman-like for a long time for the Tars and can play loosey, and he's a big body, and he plays with that physical force that we're seeing in the Northern Hemisphere. So I think he factors into that as well. He's obviously uncapped, a little bit older at 29, but so deserving of an opportunity, man. He gives it all week in, week out. And then we probably can't miss out Tony Pulu, having, you speak of age, at 33 years of age, I don't think, from my knowledge, there was a winger that's debuted that old, especially winger. Like, we see so many of our wingers normally head off overseas. Well, that's what he's done, but he went for a Wallabies jersey, didn't he? So it's great to see him in there, and Dave obviously has a hell of a lot of respect for him and knows a lot about him, having had him at the Chiefs.
Yeah, and some of these guys, I remember Lomi Fa'atau was like that. At that age, still lightning quick.
Yeah.
Hadn't lost that pace just yet. Who can move?
Yeah, well, Bryn's been giving Matiele big raps, but when Pulu's had his opportunity for the Force, he's been great as well, and I think both of them are working well in tandem. I also think that Force pack has provided some great ball. They might not have been at their top end game on the weekend, but before that, there was talks of expecting them to beat teams like the Reds and the Brumbies. So I don't think everyone would have said that at the start of the season. It's on the back of those boys up front, giving guys like that the opportunity to perform.
Hey, let's have a look up north. We've done Southern Hemisphere. Up north is where it's at the moment because, wow, France, we've talked ad nauseum about them for the last 2 years. They are it. First title since 2010. They are 100% the favourites now for the next Rugby World Cup. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, definitely at the moment, yep. But we know that can change pretty quickly. But what I would say about them is I had a little bit of a crack at them around their breakdown against the Irish, and the fact that they were trying to go for everything and spending 2 or 3 men at each defensive ruck, which created opportunities for guys like Jamison Gibson Park. Man, they have sorted that out tenfold. That was the biggest difference I felt between the two sides. Like, I thought England turned up, with a clear game plan of kicking, but their ability to get it back was worthwhile with that tactics, and they were sort of there just after the break. But if you watch the French tries, it's all from their attacking cleanouts are sucking in. You could just see it from the white jerseys when they go to the wide shot. They were just like sucked right in, and then it was those easy balls over the top, or defender drifted too early, which created that try just before half time. And that's just so damaging when you're winning collisions with big bodies and you're getting good long cleans. Defence has to suck in because they'll pick through the middle, because we saw DuPont score like that. So they've got that, they've just got threats everywhere due to the fact they're winning those collisions, and that's the difference. And as we've seen from the last World Cup, the team that was the most brutal and we're looking for that side. And I suppose this is why someone like Peter Gus has come into the frame of All Black talk, because he has that size. He can really move bodies and get you on the front foot. And guys like Woki and Co on the weekend just delivered that. But then obviously DuPont and Intermark put the others into space. So, I mean, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about their game.
On the other foot, Bryn, England had a tough year last year, 2 from 5 this year. Eddie Jones is now being questioned. Is this the bloke for the job? What is going wrong for them?
Oh, I think, to be honest, it's just having that kind of more of an attacking mindset. Look, I think it's more so like when they are scoring their points, a lot of their points have been scored through penalties, and like obviously there's based around scoreboard pressure. And what they are doing, they're going to a strong set piece. They love going to their line out more and being able to build pressure through going to their line out more. And then you look at Ben Young's on the weekend, the contestable game that they were able to do with that, his execution, and kicked it really, really well to be able to suffocate and been able to really tighten up teams. But if you look at the example of the French, the 40th and the 60th minute, they're scoring tries to win test matches. And in big moments, you know that you've got to be able to be on, because whether it be off a turn-off ball, you talk about DuPont and him being able to in and around the ball. Intermac, if you look in that first try, it was on go forward ball, playing on top of teams, asking questions, and then they score points off that. So I think that's the biggest thing for England, I think, moving forward. Yes, we know that they've got the contestable game with Ben Young, so they did on the weekend. They've got a strong set piece. You look at the week last week where they were down to 7 men, were still dominating and winning scrum time penalties, and then the line-out work with the Toge and the likes of Laws and that, being able to build pressure through that. But I think they've got to score tries, especially against France and the likes of England. We've talked around their scoring tries and the ability to be able to score tries, a lot of them. I think England have got to be able to be a little bit more attacking and score more points through tries, not penalties.
I think that's the key. Like we said it, last week, even the week before, you're not going to win the Six Nations by 3 points, 3-point gathering anymore. I think they scored before the weekend 7 tries, 5 of them came from the Italy game. So then there's 2 tries before their one on the weekend. You were never going to beat the French in threes. It just they want 7, and they're relentless about it. To the facts I've already sort of outlaid, but there's that aspect. But also I think they need to look at that semi-final. We've spoken about how dominant they were in the defensive collision. They're just not buying their outsides the ability to defend that space at the moment, because it's they're on the back foot. There's not enough numbers. There's just too much going on in and around that breakdown. So a big shift will be their defensive collisions and making sure that they're the team, because they sort of were the team everyone left the World Cup. I know the Springboks won, but everyone was just like, wow, that's some physical dominance they're showing there, and they've probably just lost that a little bit.
Sorry, just one thing I want to bring up with the French as well. We talk around their attacking ability and their scoring tries, but look, I think defensively they made massive shifts in the last 2 weeks, and what I mean by that is around on the edge play with Dante and Fiku. And big moments in that game, Dante's done it a lot. I've talked about it a lot on the show around his ability to be able to be over the ball, get steals and relieve pressure. Fiku on the weekend had 2 big steals in that game where England were building momentum and being able to build a lot of pressure. And then they turn them in, they get high on the edge, whether it be with the winger, with Villiers or Pinot, and then they go right back into Fiku or Dante, and just being able to get that pressure and that jacking of the ball. I think those two in tandem, 12 and 13, we talk around the South African pairing, but Dante and Fiku on defensive players, they've been massive in the Six Nations.
And that's what I sort of was getting at before, is their breakdown both sides of the ball, but it's also their decision making. Like I hate to harp on about it, but you get killed in reviews if you go into a breakdown and you don't get it slow, you don't slow that ball for over 3 seconds, or you don't get it back, or you don't get a penalty. And if you don't do that and you've entered a break, you're answerable to that. And I thought, like I've said in the past, they've gone too hard at that early. Their strike rate would be over 80% on the weekend, and it was the same the week before. And that's just so massive for your defence to have that sort of time or ability to turn the ball over.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, isn't it?
It's impressive.
It's very scary.
And I think, to their credit, they would have learned a lot from last year's Six Nations when they were the favourites, and probably buttoned off what they were doing during the week to make sure they turned up, ready to go. And to me, they just never, even when they weren't playing well, they found a way. And that's when a team's really on task.
Yet the Welsh have gone kind of the opposite direction, haven't they? They've fallen off this year. What's going on there?
I think there's a lot of change, a lot of rotation of players. And I mean, it was a kick fest, that test match. And to be fair, both sides defensively were strong. But that one try that won the game, and I know this is the common theme of today, is that discipline. So they kicked 5 penalties before that, and that put them the ability to have that moment of success. But a lot of it comes back down to that 80-minute performance and the opportunities you give teams to build that scoreboard pressure. And as I said, to the fact, I said you're not going to win the Six Nations in threes, but they kept themselves within a sniff to do something magical that will come off 1 time out of 10, and it did. but it shows they have the ability to score points.
So let's talk about that magic now, Bryn. Anje Kapuatso, second test match, 50 kilograms, ringing wet, this kid. Like, he is absolutely tiny, 22 years old. I looked online, it said anywhere between 66 and 76 kg, depending on which website you went on to. I mean, he is very, very small kid. But my goodness, the way he broke that hole open and set up Eduardo Padovani for that winner was incredible.
Oh, it was, you know, and it seemed like a moment like that had to happen for Italy to get their first win. You know, we've gone, I don't know, what is it, 7 years? 7 years since their last one.
36 tests, I think it was.
36 test matches, so, you know, something special had to be brewing, and that was an individual performance. You know, I heard raves around a Christian Cullen-esque with the ability that he was able to do there, and so, yeah, what a great moment for that young man, and, you know, more so for Italy as well. You know, we can be disappointed in the Welsh, and their expectation was to win that. But, you know, Italy held on there to be able to give themselves opportunity to win a game, and a guy that been able to do some footwork, some speed, then the ability to finish, to be able to finish. We talk around execution, to finish games at big moments. And he actually got probably, I don't know whoever scored the try, the Welsh guy actually pushed him forward to be able to get the try. So, but no, what a moment in a game, and, you know, he's probably one guy that we'll be looking forward to seeing the Italian jersey moving forward, especially coming up to the World Cup.
I think we can guarantee that. I think he's secured himself at least 3 or 4 tests in a row. I think the most important thing that came out of it for me was how composed Kieran Crowley was. And he was like, oh, look at everyone, you know, it's like we won the World Cup, but we haven't. We've got a real young group here. And you can straight away see him as a coach is like, right, this is the platform now. I've been working towards this. Now we're going to the next level, and this is how we can progress this group. And I thought that was quite, I just thought it was key for me, because he could have over-celebrated as well. I'm sure he enjoyed it, no doubt, but it was just how focused he was, like, this is our springboard to our next sort of stage. And you know, you and I were just talking to JK before, and he was saying, you know, the under-20s program is winning a lot of games and really challenging the top teams over there. And Kieran Crowley's been in their club side competition coaching, so he knows a lot of their players, he knows the style they want to play. So things are looking on the up, but I think they needed this win for everyone to start to look at that stuff. Do you know what I mean? No, that's always been there, but we probably haven't dug that deep around it. But now that they've had this win, everyone's starting to go, well, this is a reason why this win's happened, and they can blossom with confidence out of it.
The other game on the weekend, Ireland versus Scotland, I think it was, 26-5. The Irish got a pretty good win over the Scottish. At the start of this campaign, we were talking up Scotland. They've done almost the opposite to the French, who've built through the campaign. The Scottish started strong and just faded away. 2 things for me. 1, the Scottish should try not to play England at the start, because they blow up all of their good stuff at the start when they play England first up. But what's going on there with Scotland? Why are they falling off, Bryn?
Oh, I think we were advocates for them. I think early in the competition, even I picked them to upset a few of those games, and so I think for me personally, it's on the weekend, the physicality of the Irish was the difference in the end. I think early doors, they're off to a 14-0 start with the domination of set piece, and then being able to just really brutally, physically dominate the collision. And we've talked about a lot on the show, winning collisions and breakdown and those kind of battles. I just think the Irish were a lot better on the weekend. He looked for a lot of those tries. They were pretty simple, to be honest, just around the corner, quick ball, dominating. Jamison Gibson Park making some good decisions whether to go the same way or come back to where the space is. And I think that was probably the difference on the weekend. I think physicality-wise, I think if you're off just a little bit, we've been advocates for the Scottish during especially the start of the Six Nations. But I think winning the physicality battle is probably where they lost it on the weekend.
Ireland, though, against New Zealand in July, are they set up now to have a good crack at the All Blacks? Do you think that they could beat that New Zealand in that series?
I think it'll be the true test of them. Coming down here to win away from home. And implement the same sort of aura they have in Ireland and Dublin. They do seem like men possessed. So I think if they can, bring that sort of focus and physicality, they'll definitely be in with a chance. And as in past years, if you asked me that, I'd be like, no, All Blacks will win the series. It's a lot closer and a lot harder to pick, but I still feel like the All Blacks will have the favourites tag being at home.
And the All Blacks have also got Joe Schmidt lurking, which might help with a little bit of intel this time around, Bryn.
Well, no, it does. He was a big part of that resurgence and where Ireland are now. So anytime you can have that kind of info to be able to bring into the All Blacks environment, to get some little 1%ers or 0.5% in what they do. But I think for me personally as well, I think hopefully they get to bring their full squad down, the strongest squad in the Six Nations. Sometimes they fall in that battle with the clubs back home where they can't bring them down here. But I think it'd be great to be a great spectacle if you can get the top Irish team that we've seen in the Six Nations. To come down to New Zealand in a really good Test match series that I'm looking forward to, and I can only imagine in that side of the world they're looking forward to seeing that challenge against the All Blacks.
If they want to win 2023, surely their motivation and their club's motivation is we springboard ourselves right into this, with our internal confidence, but also our outward confidence and our belief of our people to travel to France, which isn't as far as it is to this side. Leaving New Zealand, winning a series, I mean, that would be as big a statement as what France has made, I believe.
Yeah. But it would be the biggest moment probably in Irish rugby history. I mean, it was big enough to beat the All Blacks twice in the last few years, but that's not beating them in New Zealand. Yeah,
so I mean, I agree with Bryn. Like, I hope they bring their number one and they come down here on a mission. Obviously, I want the All Blacks to win, but it'll be great viewing.
So while we're talking that series in a couple of months' time, what about England-Australia? How does that play out? Do you feel like England go into that as favourites at all, or is this fairly level pegging with the Aussies?
I think it's level pegging as well. I think it's similar to the ABs and the Irish. England have got a bit of work to do, as we've spoken about, and they'll come up, I suppose, against a different style, but we do know, we've spoken about the guys that are in that 40-man squad, it's a clear idea of where Dave Rennie felt they fell short in their end-of-year tour, and it's that physicality, collision, set-piece, dominated style, and we know they like to hold on to the ball, so it will be a war of attrition, and they'll be travelling. So I do think, though, Eddie Jones is great under pressure, and him coming home, there'll be a lot of motivation for him to get his squad right, but also the structure of his weeks and the structure of the tour right that brings the best out of his players.
Not to mention there's a whole heap of pressure on Eddie Jones, period. But
I think he likes it. I don't know. He sometimes can create that himself. It brings the best out of him to get the best out of the group. So, he's been around so long, man. He knows more tricks than most.
I think what it does, he always does it as well. It takes the pressure off the playing group. Eddie's really good at being able to play that kind of media circus and being able to manipulate it to the way that he wants. He doesn't mind put all that pressure on me, take it away from the players, and then they can just focus on what they need to do for that week to week and in trainings and in games.
I always think of him maybe a bit like Jose Mourinho in the football. You bring him in, he makes a huge change, they suddenly turn around, and then it kind of just...
Yeah, but I feel like he's trying to prove that wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like he's really determined to turn this round. I don't know, that's the feeling I get. And I certainly wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah, he's certainly speaking very confidently, considering he came off, a 25-13 loss to France and just 2 wins from 5 in this competition. He's still talking about the fact that this is the team that's going to go to France and win the World Cup.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a hell of a thing to say, really.
We're still a long way out-ish now. Still a year and a bit, so it's amazing. How many times have we seen... we spoke about it at the end of the All Blacks tour, teams that we just are like, man, there's no touching them going into that World Cup and they never win it. Yeah. So history tells us to be on our toes. Especially if we're from New Zealand.
Well, but that's one thing it does do, Bryn. The pressure is right off the All Blacks, outside of the public expectation and their own expectation in New Zealand, because the rest of the world is no longer looking at New Zealand as the favourite. Over the last couple of years, that slipped away. And whether New Zealanders like it or not, people won't be talking about them as number one for the next 2 years.
Is that good though? Motivation on walls and bringing people on a new journey. It might just be the turn that the group needed. Maybe I'm glass half full here, but...
Yeah, but no, I think it's a great challenge, and I can imagine that Fozzie and the All Black group and the leadership as well will be able to galvanise the group with that. So very rarely is an All Black team regarded as an underdog going into a World Cup or just in general. So they'll take that. I can only imagine in that environment they'll take it as a challenge and saying like, oh, sweet, cool, we get that, but. All right, we'll continue to keep showing you. So that's the only way that I could think of it. It'll be a great challenge for them.
Excited already. I'm excited already. What's going to happen? Okay, before we go, let's go through our picks of the weekend in Super Rugby Pacific. The Six Nations obviously is done, so we don't have to worry too much about that. We talked about it before, Moana Pasifika versus the Hurricanes for you.
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
Yep, Hurricanes.
Rebel versus Drua.
Drua.
Yes, he loves the Rebels. Absolutely loves the Rebels.
I'm going to go Drua as well.
Force versus Brumbies.
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 Highlanders, Blues.
Blues.
Yeah, Blues.
Chiefs, Crusaders. This is the biggie, isn't it? Waikato.
Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Obviously, I'll back ourselves. I'll back our team.
Backing the Crusaders while saying that the Chiefs are absolutely the favourite.
Yeah, classic.
And the Reds versus the Waratahs, the State of the Union game.
Reds, Waratahs. Reds.
Reds.
Where's that been played?
That's Reds at home, Suncorp.
Yep, Reds.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, that's interesting. Like, I feel like the Reds are a team that can do some interesting things this year. So, the Waratahs have got some surprise packages in there, though.
They certainly do. And Bryn alluded to it, their midfield combination. If that, Holloway gave a decent spray to his own team. I know they won, but he gave a decent spray to his own forward pack, so they'll be better for it. But I still think the Reds will get up.
Right, well, thank you very much, guys. Once again, James Parsons in Auckland. Bryn down in Christchurch preparing to play for the Crusaders against the Chiefs this weekend. Thank you all for joining us this week again on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Of course, catch all of the footy on Sky Sport and you can catch all the analysis on rugbypass.com.